Your number one critic for edible greens and horror screams. Thank you for clicking in on the show with no leaks, just shrieks and THC treats. I'm your host Alissa, and prepare yourselves for another episode of High Reviews. All right, High Reviewers, we are going to watch The Black Phone tonight. I have to say that this is one that has been on my list for some time. I remember back in 2021 when the film was releasing trailers at the time, and I try to avoid trailers because I hate spoilers, but they had a really short trailer for this one, and I remember seeing just a brief, there's like two frames that I recall from this trailer, and they didn't reveal anything from what I remember. Otherwise I probably would know the whole film in that trailer alone, but it didn't reveal anything. It was eerie enough and weird enough that I knew, okay, this is going to be unsettling film. This is going to be something that I think is really going to bend the mind. At least that's what I'm hoping. So it seems like a psychological type of horror perhaps, but it definitely has a horror feel to it. I am very excited to watch it. I know that Ethan Hawke plays a huge role in it, I guess I'll have to say that I am aware of the character that he plays, but Ethan Hawke is usually the kind of guy that plays good boy roles most of the time, and yet I have seen him in other things where he was not such a good guy. So I know he has it in him, but I'm very interested to see his performance in this movie, and also just to see the movie itself. Like I said, been on my radar for some time. I have been itching to watch this one, so I'm just going to dive right in and answer. And to go with The Black Phone, I am going to have just baked Rice Crispie treat bars. They're the cereal kind of fruit bars, almost like Fruity Pebbles. They are 5 milligrams a treat. They are individually wrapped, which I think is really cool. Keeps them fresh and also just kind of fun to open up a treat on its own. I am going to have 2 of them and do 10 milligrams. I'm hoping for a real, just something nice. I really need something nice tonight. Packaging is really pretty. I really love this packaging. So let's get baked and answer that phone. 1 edible, 1 woman, 1 scary movie. It's time for High Reviews. Good. So here we are with the recap of The Black Phone the next day. Not sure if I mentioned this to you guys, but I just wanted to let you know that when I film the viewing, it is literally the night before. So this that you're seeing right now is the next day. Whether it be in the morning or early afternoon is when I do my recap. So it is literally the following day where I am going into this, because kind of has some time to marinate in my mind and I think about some things, and then also because I just want it to be a cohesive experience with this review for both the movie and the edible that I do. So just wanted to mention that. 1, 2, 3, go. The story itself felt very simplistic in a way, but especially with how the movie started, it's not what I thought. So as the movie begins, I'm just going to tell you, I was not prepared for how harrowing and emotional and impactful it made me feel, how much of an impact it had on me. So there is a lot of child abuse, intense child abuse scenes. Just trigger warnings for y'all who haven't seen it. There's a lot of child abuse in this movie, which is really difficult to watch. The actors did a wonderful job of really making you feel that in a way that is extremely unpleasant. And I maybe too, for me personally, because I have a history of that in my own life, that hit me harder. Also, bullying in school. So this was set in 1978 in the film. Not that the period changes at all that child abuse happens or bullying specifically happens, because bullying is still going on today, as we know, all around us in a variety of ways, and we even see it out there. So in this movie, there was a lot of bullying, and I'm talking extreme. So that was ongoing for a lot of the beginning of the movie that I wasn't prepared for, and it was really hard to watch. I was engaged in there, but I felt such angst for these characters going through it, because there was so much injustice with it. It just really was upsetting. That's the worst part, is when there is injustice for people who are targeted, for people who are, for no fucking reason, seriously, for no fucking reason, that abuse and bullying like that goes on in the world. And the worst part of it is when nobody does anything about it. They just stand by. That is something that I really get passionate about and upset about in the world, that it is allowed to go on, and there are people that just stand there and do nothing. And I know there's a variety of responses out there in terms of, well, people are scared, or they don't know what to do, or whatever. But guess what? Bottom line, what it really comes down to is people should get involved. People should stop bullies. People should stop abusers. There is far more that can be done to assist others with, stopping it from happening, stepping in as needed, saying something, even saying something. If you're not going to get in the middle of a fight or whatever, you still say something to stand up. It just, versus pulling out your phone to record it, or back in the setting of this film, just standing there and doing nothing, or even laughing and looking the other way. There's a variety of responses here. So that was something that hit me really hard right away. And to comment off of that, what was really wonderful, though, is there was a character in there. His name was Robin, who was that one friend that stepped in to do something, who was that person that stood up, who was that person that saw how wrong it was and tried to do something about it. Robin, that is the friend that you want. That is the friend that you want in life, in school, you want that friend in life, and that is the kind of person that I think we need more of, people like that, and to inspire people to become like that, some version. Even Finn is another person who stands up, and Finn's sister, Grace. These two characters, I love their relationship so much. Yes, they have the little banter, sibling banter stuff that goes on, which every, sibling relationship has in some way, because, we pick on each other for fun. Again, there's a degree of that where it goes too far in terms of it being bullying itself. But when it stays light, and that the main thing is that they actually do love each other, and they show that by being there for each other and coming to each other's aid when needed. So Grace and Finn, they are a wonderful example of what that could look like in this kind of extreme situation. So it's an extremely abusive household, and also at school, for Finn in particular. And Grace and Finn, whenever something dire like that, or I should say whenever something is occurring that's extremely unjust, extremely abusive, just awful, both of them have each other's backs and jump in without even a hesitation to do so, because they're in it and they understand that. They're there for each other in the way that not just people, but siblings should be, that they should be there to protect each other, to stand up for one another. And they did that, and they are so young, and they're doing this. That was something that stuck out to me that I don't see a lot of in films, but I should say I think maybe that representation speaks to me a lot, because I wish that I had a sister like that or a brother like that. I do have brothers, but we didn't have that kind of relationship. And I was the sister that stood up for my younger brother in school when he was being picked on, or, if I ever found out somebody was bullying him or saying something to him or doing him wrong, I would do something about it. So watching Finn and Grace, that made me love them so much and wish that that was something I had in my life, but that it helped to get through those really difficult moments watching the movie when really awful things were occurring, that they were together, they were solid no matter what. And Grace and Finn both never gave up in believing that the other was there for them, because they were through to the end. It was a beautiful relationship to see depicted in this movie. I loved that so much. Didn't do a hideously deep dive on the movie. I just wanted to see if this was based on anything, or if it was just an original story that someone came up with, okay? So what I did was I just did a quick check on origin of this, and it was quick and easy, where Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, wrote the short story for this movie. And the director of this film brought in some of his own childhood memories of what he experienced that was a rough upbringing, and they combined that story and the director's specific, their own personal side to it. They brought into this movie to create this story. And Joe Hill, being Stephen King's son, not only does he look a lot like him, but it also makes a lot of sense that he wrote the story, because there were little nods of things that I saw that either he was inspired by Stephen King's work, because one of the things, for those of you out there, I don't know how many of you watching this would be Stephen King fans, or just you've read some of his books. I've read a handful of his books. So in watching the film adaptations of Stephen King's books and reading some of his books, a common, constant, reoccurring theme is religion. And usually religion being depicted as something that you question, or that it might be even taken too far, or there's always something surrounding the story and it's integrated into the story that religion is a part of it. I mean, think of movies like The Stand. That one was it had an incredible overview of religion and God and good versus evil. So Stephen King has always had that in his books, and then it's reflected in the movies most often too, the film adaptations as well. Now, Joe Hill had a nod to that in this story. I'm assuming it's part of the story because it was incorporated in the movie with the character of Grace in particular, that there was this nod to it in it being part of this character's ideology, and yet questioning it, especially when things get really dark, and then we're questioning if faith is real. Is faith worth it? Is it harmful? That's where I was like, okay, I see you, Joe Hill. I see you. Okay, you've got some influence there, and I think that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that in terms of him carrying that over for, I don't know his reasons or what the angle is, but I found that interesting. Coming back to the movie itself, with some other things that I noticed, I absolutely loved how it was shot. The color and the lighting was a perfect mood, not just for getting the tone of the 70s set. I know I wasn't born or around then, but it has that look to it. But in the horror field, it really has you feeling unsettled the entire time. And part of why I think that worked is not just because of the color and the way that it was designed. Production design was top notch for this, perfect, costumes and everything too. But it was also the actors, it was the way that this was presented. There's a lot of shots where it's like things are taking some time, but you know it's going to lead to something really uncomfortable or upsetting. And it's going to take you there, and you're going with it, and you're kind of being pulled in, and you don't resist because you know you're going to get there. And you want to see it through, even if it's going to be just awful in the way that is meant to because of this type of genre in this movie. So there was a lot of sepia that was used, and also the design of the production with it being dingy, and there's just this like dark filmy covering on it that worked perfectly. I noticed there was a lot of overcast days where they were filming too, and that was probably on purpose, which I think worked really well for this. I think that there were some letdowns in certain places, especially the buildup for the grabber, and as far as the ultimate showdown, the ultimate conclusion to this story. How it led up to that was a bit anticlimactic for me, from the side of the villain in particular. So Hawke's portrayal was actually very understated. There were some moments where I kind of was taken out of it a little bit, and I don't know if it was Ethan Hawke's approach or the director's or both, but there was a couple moments where I was kind of like, okay, this feels a little put on, or not as creepy as they could have made it if they would have stuck with some other ways that his character was interacting. If they would have kind of stayed along that vein, I think it would have been fine. But then they went in this other direction at times that just was weird, and it kind of took me out of it a little bit. But also, I will say though, that there were a few moments in particular where Ethan Hawke's portrayal of the grabber were very menacing. And it wasn't over-the-top acting. It wasn't even talking. It was just his presence and how he was presenting himself. I was deeply uncomfortable. I was worried for Finn. I was concerned about what's going to happen. And I will say that overall throughout this movie, that was consistent for me, where pretty much, I'd say about 95% of the time, I was so locked in and really rooting for Finn the entire time, to the point that I was worried for him. There were so many moments you're just like, oh, is he going to be able to do this? Or, oh, what's going to happen? Or, oh, is he going to show up around the corner? Or, don't do that because something might happen. Being in that place of fear of consequence, fear of repercussions, fear of some kind of horrible retaliation, you feel that pretty much the majority of the movie. And I felt like a little kid at times, which I think for the effect from the film, that's what you want. But as an adult and working through my own crap and trauma, that was not fun. But it was very well done. It's harder to watch, especially if for those of us who have trauma, especially childhood trauma, I'll say, that it's harder to watch because we relate to it so hard, and we want them to be taking care of these kids, or these people, I would say children in this instance, we want them to be cared for, we want them to be okay, and we want justice for them because we want it for ourselves. So I think that in that way, it was difficult to watch, but I felt like I could really relate. I could really understand them. And I just wanted so much for them to come out on top more than ever. And the topic of trauma, it changes people. Finn would be the character that you're watching and you're going along with to see that journey with, because he's not a weak character by any means. I don't see him as weak. I think what I see is that he's trapped by the environment he's in and the trauma surrounding him that's affecting him every single day. And he doesn't have many resources that are there for him. He does his sister Grace and his friend Robin for sure. He also is trying to find his own way and how to deal with it. And he does the best that he can. But then because of what happens throughout the film, and especially his dealing with the grabber and what happens to get through to the end, the conclusion to all of this, Finn just grew with strength. He became stronger, both not just in wanting to stand up for himself, but mentally more savvy. And I think because of his history of trauma, that he actually was able to take a lot of those skills already that he earned in dealing with that shit every single day to deal with someone like this, where that's why the grabber couldn't anticipate what kind of difficulty he could have with a child like this, because he didn't know his background. So I think that that speaks to a lot of us who have survived so much, and that we, because of that history, even though it bogs us down, even though it can really make some days extremely difficult to just get through, we have taken a lot with us that helps us to survive that much harder, or helps us to survive that much more readily and willing to get into the thick of it to do whatever is necessary to survive, because we've already been through a lot, and we already had to think through a lot, and we already had to figure out ways to fight. And it just causes us to do more of that. And we reach a point where we break. There is a scene in particular with Grace earlier on in the movie where she was getting abused so badly. She, even though it was in the middle of it going on, she reached her limit. And it was like a moment for me watching that where I was like, oh, wow. Like, I don't know if as a kid would I have done that. But then I think, well, when I was a teenager, I hit my limit too. And that you can only take so much before you start to fight back. There are those of us who are like, I fucking had enough, and now you're going to see it. I loved seeing that from Grace at that moment, and then Finn ultimately over time throughout what was going on. It was such a wonderful underdog moment, and also just him reclaiming his life to fight with everything that he had to survive. I think that that's so important to see reflected, especially from a child, even though as children, it is not our fault ever when we are abused. It is not our fault that we are receiving that kind of treatment from the outside world or even within our own household, because we are innocents. We were brought here without any consent, and it's not fair that we are treated that way. So we're defenseless for a really long time, if not most of the time, because our caregivers are the ones that are supposed to be loving, protective, and doing what's best for us. And it's really unfortunate how many households there are that don't do that, and how many parents there are that do not protect their kids, and in fact are the ones to be feared by their own children. And I understand that. So when you get to a point where you finally rise up, like really fight back, you reach that level of no return where you're not going to take shit anymore. And I think that that's a wonderful transformative moment that occurs for people that you can't go back from, because once you see, you can't unsee. And I think that that's really great to see depicted, even though it's not the child's responsibility to protect themselves. That's the parents. But for kids who can do that, and they get out of these really awful situations, or they fight back in these really terrible situations, more power to you. Love you for it. There were some interesting supernatural elements to this movie with the story that I didn't expect. And honestly, I feel like this movie was more a suspense supernatural film than it was horror. Although I will say the use of blood in this movie was not what I expected, and it was very, as you can tell by the way I'm reacting, I definitely was squirmy because it was just a lot, and in the ways that they were using it, I was like, wow, this is gritty, and it's with children, like, geez, like, I don't know, I guess it hit well in the way that I had a reaction. I was squirmy, I was a little woozy, honestly. So fun fact, I have a fear of blood, which I know some of you might be like, what? And you watch horror movies? I've had people say that to me before. To be very clear, it's more personal to me, where getting my blood drawn, I have to lie down, I need my feet propped up, I can't look, all these things, and I even have like a squeeze ball sometimes so that I can focus on something else, because I absolutely hate it and I will faint. If I see blood, it depends on what it is as far as how I'll react to it. So for example, if I can tell it's really fake in a movie, it's not going to bother me at all. It could be like pouring out by the gallons and it won't bother me. If I can tell something's really fake in a prosthetic way and it's bloody or whatever, not going to bother me. If it's too real, that's where it can kind of get to me a little bit, like a bloody nose in a movie and the color looks right. Oh, that one will get me. Even now I'm just like getting woozy just thinking about it. So there was some of that in The Black Phone where it was effective and it was just like, it stuck out to me. And I think too, because of the color palette choices for the editing, it worked really well with that too. I don't know if they were trying to enhance it like that, but it was well done. The Black Phone, I think, is a decent film. I think it's not a perfect story. There are some plot holes. There are some things that are missing a little bit. Overall, though, I would definitely watch it again. And I'd be interested maybe even to, like, when I watch it a second time, if I pick up on other things, or maybe some of those plot holes would be filled for me because I watch it a second time. Regardless, hope you enjoy it if you take a look at it. For the edible review, I had two 5 milligrams apiece of the Rice Crispie fruity cereal treats from Just Baked. They were 5 milligrams apiece. So texturally, they were even better than some of the Crispies that I've eaten in my life. They're really small squares, but decent enough size for a dose. Like, they're bigger than some of the other things that I've eaten for edibles, and chewy, marshmallowy. They're even sticky like the Crispies in a great nostalgic way. They tasted even better than Fruity Pebbles. So taste-wise and texture and the enjoyment of it being a treat was wonderful. No weedy taste whatsoever. They are very dangerous in that way where you could, honestly, I probably could have eaten the whole bag, and I would have if it weren't for the fact that I would have probably been on another planet. So delicious, wonderful. As far as the effect of the THC itself, I'm glad I did 10 milligrams only. There's a couple episodes, the last one with the stuff, and also the hunt with the syrup that I had. I took too high levels of doses for both of those episodes, so I wanted to do something different and bring it down a little bit. 10 was perfect. I felt that it was very pleasant. I was very relaxed. I also wonder if it had a benefit in just where I was just locked into the movie. I don't think it made me do that, but it didn't cause any anxiety. It didn't do anything where I felt unsettled by the edible itself. It was actually very enjoyable, easygoing. There was no high rise where I felt extremely anxious and wanted it to stop. There was no lackluster effect. It was an ease in and maintained for hours. It was good. And some people said it has a delayed effect. I didn't feel that way. It was not ramped up. It was just kind of a perfect onset and maintained for a good amount of time. And I was able to go to sleep normally after I finished the movie and did some notes and backing up my files real quick and things like that. But I really enjoyed this one. I'm very happy that I got it. I am absolutely going to eat more of this. I'm looking forward to having it again and just enjoying a nice snack too. So I definitely recommend, as so far in doing my episodes, it is my favorite edible that I have tried, the Just Baked Rice Krispies Fruity Cereal Treats. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will look for your comments on this episode and going forward, and giving me your recommendations for horror films, THC edibles, combination of a horror film and THC edible. I would really love to do that, so I'm really looking for you guys to leave something for me. Please hit like, please subscribe, leave me your comments, and I will see you here to click in on for the next episode of High Reviews.